All right, then.
Oh, allow me, Vinny, please.
Oh, well, I'll have a lot to say too, but it's your show after all.
Chris Champion and Don Valentine. I can't even say his name. I just want
You know what? Don't say. He doesn't deserve a name.
This guy. So, Champion's out there, and Jim Ross says, Chris Champion has alerted us he has a very special surprise coming up tonight. I'm like, man, what could this fucking special surprise be? I can't wait. So he gets in there, and he throws a... Okay, so what happens is he throws a jumping sidekick, and Don Valentine falls down. Now, Don Valentine is running towards the ropes at a certain speed, okay? Chris Champion is expecting him to bounce off the ropes and return towards him at the same speed.
Critical, yes.
Yes. So he has to time his jumping sidekick. So he whips him into the ropes, and he leaps in the air, and he extends his leg, and this fucking Don Valentine, I'm going to say his name, he slows down. And so the kick looks like shit, and Chris Champion falls on his ass. Don Valentine also falls down. So then, Champion hits him with a chop. And you can see Champion's lips. He very loudly says, stand up, because he's going to give him another fucking kick. Now this time, he's not going to throw him off the ropes. He's not going to try to time a jumping kick as a man is running off the ropes. No, he's going to have him stand up, don't fucking move, and I'm going to throw a side kick. And he throws a side kick, and this asshole fucking backs up. And so Champion whiffs this fucking sidekick. And this time, Don Valentine does not go down. He just fucking backs up and stands there. Champion's like, you son of a bitch. And so now it's time to just finish this, okay? We learn, or at least I learn, what the special surprise that Chris Champion has promised actually is. Chris Champion stands there, and he begins to lift his arms in the air, and he begins to lift one knee up into the air, and he begins standing there on one leg in preparation for the Karate Kid crane kick.
Yes.
Not one announcer has any fucking idea what he's doing. He stands there on one leg, and by the way, I never realized how hard the crane kick was. I never realized how hard it was to stand on one fucking leg. He's on one leg. Keep in mind, who's the fucking guy that played the Karate Kid? Ralph Macchio?
Ralph Macchio.
Who's the old guy? What was his name?
Pat Morita.
Pat Morita. Pat Morita could fucking stand on a fucking stump sticking out of the fucking water and not fall off, okay? He was an old guy who never even did martial arts. This fucking guy can't even stand in the middle of the ring on one leg. So he's wobbling back and forth. He looks like the windy suspension bridge that I walked over today. He can barely stand. But god damn it, he's going to hit his move. And he leaps in the air and he kicks Don Valentine right in the fucking jaw. Don Valentine falls down to his death. He gets the pin, and you've never seen a man so angry to have won a squash match as Chris Champion. He's furious, and I can't blame him. He made his big comeback, and he could not have looked worse. Like, if the NWA board was thinking, that's Chris Champion, you know what? What the fuck? Let's make him world champion. He's going to beat Flair. He'll have for 25 days. And Luger's going to beat him. And then Starrcade will do Luger and Flair. They'll finally face off for that title. Flair's challenger. If they come up with a fucking idea like that and then they watch this match, it'd be like, match is canceled. Champion ain't getting the title. He looks like shit. And it wasn't his fault. It was his fault in the sense that he tried too much with this shithead. But it was not all his fault.
The too much that he tried with this shithead was very basic stuff that if you can't do this, you should not be on television. I watched this entire match from start to finish nonstop. I pressed pause. I sat back and thought for a while. I rewound it. I watched the entire match start to finish nonstop a second time. I just let it all sink in. I went back. I made a series of screenshots and GIFs recapping this. This is a 2-minute match that I devoted like an hour of my life to. I could not believe my eyes. Okay, I know I am prone to hyperbole, and I know I exaggerate sometimes. Okay, listen to me, Brian. Don Valentine is the worst professional wrestler I have ever seen. And I don't limit that to national TV or major shows. I include that to guys who showed up to Tim Flower's school to train for one time and quit halfway through and never returned. I once watched a guy in a conditioning drill. The drill was do a crisscross. When Tim shouts your name, you drop down. The other guy runs over you, and you get up and you keep on running. And you take turns doing this. I once witnessed with my own eyes in the middle of the drill, one of the guys threw on the brakes, threw his hands in the air, walked out of the building, and never returned. Okay, yes. That guy was a better wrestler than Don Valentine. Don Valentine often appeared to me a consistent effort to sabotage his own shitty squash match. When he got the very first one, the very first thing Champion does is chop him. And Valentine's bump for this chop is to like sit down and then put his hand on the mat, right? So then Champion only did like 6 things in this entire 2 minutes, but I remember them all vividly because I watched them so much. Champion goes to whip him in I think it may have even been supposed to be a sidekick, but because it got fucked up, it was supposed to be a drop kick. But because it got fucked up and Champion was trying to levitate, one foot came down and the other came up. So I watched as Don Valentine was pushed into the ropes. He didn't know how to go backwards in the ropes. He didn't know how to go forwards into the ropes. He certainly didn't know how to come off the ropes. He didn't know how to take the drop kick. So this looks horrible. At this point, the fact somebody, I forget who it was, somebody once did something very similar to Road Warrior Hawk. They stopped running on a drop kick, so Hawk fell on his ass like a geek. And Hawk beat the fuck out of them. Because that's what you do when they fuck something up and you look bad as a result. You have to it's your job to make yourself look good and beat the fuck out of them. Champion didn't. Chris Champion must be the most patient man in the world, as this guy repeatedly, over and over, either didn't know how to sell something or just outright refused and made Champion look like the biggest goof over and over and over again. By the end of me sharing my thoughts with the world about how Don Valentine was the worst wrestler I'd ever seen, I provided evidence over and over for how he fucked up everything. Lance Storm, a Canadian man, an entire country known for their patience and kindness, talked about how he didn't understand why Chris Champion wasn't just beating the shit out of this guy. Hurricane Helms, who has been on Lord knows how many shows across the country, across the world, the worst of the worst he's seen, in his rise to the top and his journeys around the world since, he simply said this was brutal. So by the end, it's 2 minutes in, and I didn't even mention the other chop. Don Valentine gets whipped into the ropes. And as he's coming off the ropes, Chris Champion throws a chop at him. Do you remember, Brian, when I first made my attempt to become a pro wrestler, and we would go to that empty warehouse at night in Tacoma with holes in the walls, holes in the brick walls in this warehouse, but goddamn it, there was a ring there. So that's where we would go to train as best I could. And I would get whipped into the ropes, and I come off, and you or Matt Farmer or Nikki Sixx or whoever was there would throw a chop, and I would fall, my back would go down, but instead of throwing my feet in the air, my feet would just keep running.
I vaguely remember this.
Yeah, okay, that is exactly what Don Valentine did in this. He took a chop like I did when I started.
You were at your worst.
At my very worst. So the point is, this guy is on TV doing something that I spent 6 months of my life taking chop after chop after chop, getting beaten and beaten and beaten, busting my ass to avoid doing before they would put me in front of a crowd in county fairs with a dozen people watching. Don Valentine's on national goddamn TV taking chops like this. So after 2 minutes of the worst wrestling I have ever seen with my eyeballs, Chris Champion, he has a surprise. He can't not do the crane kick, right? He can't suddenly say, fuck this, I'm just going to small package this guy and go home. He has to deliver the surprise that has been teased. He has to do the crane kick. So he's standing there on one foot, and I can't blame him for wobbling back and forth because he's probably scared shitless about what's going to happen now. And he's thinking, if I don't kick this guy, he probably won't sell this either. So Don Valentine gets up, and he slowly turns around, and Chris Champion has no choice. It's not his fault. He does what he has to do. He kicks this motherfucker right in the fucking jaw. And Valentine's head whips back. Oh, he sells this one. He sells this like a gunshot. Chris Champion looks to the announcers. He cannot believe what he has just been through. He makes the cover, and he pins him. I was ruined after this.
I don't blame you.
My life was gone astray. I didn't know what was going on. I did not take a walk, but I had to turn the show off for a while. I could not believe this. Like, I needed a 20-minute break to come back. Now, I'm happy I did because there was more to come, but my God in heaven. Do you realize, Brian, we've been like shitty Saturday Night Jobbers like 5 years. Nothing comes close to Don Valentine.
Nope.
Dale LaPerouse on his worst day could work circles around Don Valentine. JC Wild, we said some terrible things about you. We apologize. You are much better than Don Valentine.
A new man to set the standard here on this program.
I don't know. We have to stop reviewing the show, Brian. We'll never reach these depths again.
We thought that about JC Wild, Vinny. The worst could still be yet to come.
No, this was absolute zero. This was it, man.
We'll find out.
The bottom of the barrel.